just started the live.
Okay.
Just what you just said.
All right, what is it that, no, I'm joking.
The project.
All right, so you guys are here today, and I'm really glad you're all here today. And I created a project, I think 3 years ago now, called The Matter of Black Lives. And especially now, it's kind of interesting that, you know, the DEI removal of virtually everything, I refuse to change the name of the project, because I think it's important. So, my mission has been for the past few years, the project called A Matter of Black Lives, Celebrating African American String Players, has been to bring attention to the history of African American improvising string players from West Africa all the way through hip hop, right? And aid in the creation of an alternative string community. You guys are here today because you're interested in something other than what's conventional. That's why you're here. I'm hoping that's why you're here. And those of you who teach, this is really for you. Encouraging string teachers to widen the scope of the music they teach. Very, very important. Foster a strong sense of inclusion by teaching the history behind the repertoire. Now, I don't mean just brown people and music. I mean Asian music, Latin American music, music from other parts of the world. We are not the only string players in the world. We are not the only string players. You can go anywhere in the world and find stringed instruments, right? And the music played on those instruments is as important and as valid as anything that you guys are playing right now. Sorry, I have to say that. It's very, very important. For me, all of this makes the world a smaller place through music. Now, I'm learning about the fiddle culture, right? For most of my life, I believe that fiddling was something that we, most of the brown people in the room, did not do. Thanks to people like Rhiannon Giddens. If you don't know Rhiannon Giddens, you need to find out, you need to Google her. Tony Thomas, who lives in West Palm Beach, he's a banjo player. And Phil Jameson, I'll talk about in a second, who actually lives in Chris's neck of the woods. I learned that this was a rich part of African American history. As an educator, I consider myself a student of life. I enjoy doing research and being able to share what I've learned both historically and musically. And I became intrigued with Appalachia after a school trip to Berea College. Does anyone know where Berea College is? No hands, okay. It's in Kentucky. Right? Who said yes? Oh, so, all right, you know about Berea College. Oh, you know where it is. All right, I knew nothing. But some interesting facts about Berea College. It was founded in 1855 by a Presbyterian minister who was an abolitionist. It's the first integrated co-educational college in Appalachia. It's tuition free, and every student on campus works. It has $1 billion endowment. And one of the first graduates, Carter G. Woodson, is responsible for creating Black History Month. So there's information if you're interested. So I tried to imagine the musical life in Appalachia, and I assumed that because of the isolation of the mountains, Black and white people lived there, and they lived similar lives. They probably worked and played and worshiped the same way. But I didn't know where to start looking until I talked to my friend, I mentioned Tony Thomas, who's a banjo player and African American. He led me to Phil Jameson's book, which I highly recommend, called Hoedowns, Reels, and Frolics, Roots and Branches of Southern Appalachian Dance. So I talked to him, I found him on the internet, and I learned quite a bit from his research. The initial focus of A Matter of Black Lives was on Southern Appalachian fiddlers, but I realized that this would be the perfect opportunity to broaden the scope and celebrate several African American violinists who contribute to Americana in several ways, in several genres. I collected information for several years about improvising violinists, and I wanted to publish a book a bunch of years ago, but at the time was discouraged because I was told it was too much of a niche. Now, I see all of y'all here are playing exactly, you proved, for example, Strings Magazine. I was turned down by Strings Magazine when I offered interviews by Joe Kennedy Jr. Does anyone know who Joe Kennedy Jr. is? That's my point. And Papa John Creech. Does anybody know who Papa John Creech is? That's my point. They told me, and I quote, maybe this would be something for our junior issue. When they did that, I canceled my subscription, right? So the project I created was a perfect opportunity to share this experience with my students from Frost and musicians from the larger South Florida community. There's some back there, right? Now, the instrument is a vehicle. I said that a few minutes ago. You learn technique that will in turn allow you to learn and internalize other styles of music. Don't limit yourself. Along with the styles, it's important to learn about the culture and the history of the culture. You as educators should include historical aspects in the learning process. It's very important. The end result, the bigger picture, is to create an alternative string community that includes musicians interested in learning about and playing the music, not only of African Americans, but African American violinists to start. Eventually, this community will continue to discover musical cultures from around the world and apply this newfound knowledge to stringed instruments. Learning about different cultures makes the world a smaller place and helps people to realize that we're more alike than we are different. I encourage the teachers to begin incorporating some of these ideas at any level with your students. It's relative. If you don't tell people something is difficult or different, they don't know, right? So this can be done with simple music at any level. Encourage students to use their ears to figure out music. Have students dig for information, sending them on a path of being junior historians. I'm a geek when it comes to that. It's important to let students know that they are included in American history and that there was a wealth of people who looked like them, who helped to create the landscape. And it makes students who may or may not feel included feel welcome. And that's basically why I do these projects. Because I think it's important that even at Frost, a student went from China, came back and brought me an instrument when she came back from China over the summer. And I said to her, is there a Chinese music, do you play like Chinese folk music or anything? And she said, well, there's really no ensemble. I started to ask around. I asked the percussion people, I asked the musicology people, and there isn't any. And there's a very large Chinese group of students at the school. And I know people play traditional music. I'm just kind of amazed that, it's not represented. So my whole thing is I want to represent music from all over the world. And I want people to understand music because I think it'll make the world a lot smaller. So, Chris, you want to come up and talk? So, all right, so anyone have any comments or questions or feelings either way? You may think that what I'm saying is yes, ma'am.
You said you were a professor at Frost?
Yes.
Do you know of any jazz ensembles for string artists at Frost?
All right, here's what's really interesting. For the first time this semester, there will be a violinist in the stamps group, in the jazz stamps group. It's the first time ever. She sings and plays violin. And I heard her, she's amazing. So I'm happy about that. And I keep trying to bring things to the, you're grabbing mine. I keep trying to bring things that represents where I'm from to the school. And I've played all kinds of music and worked with all kinds of people, and I'm the kind of crazy person that if I don't know this style of music, I will go to you and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but will you teach me? Because to me, figuring out the mechanics of music is what keeps music fresh for me, so, yes.
What do you say to the students who are told, who are frowned upon for going outside of the traditional class?
This has been my whole life.
Right.
I'm a fringe musician. I've been a fringe musician all my life. It's funny because a guitar player, you never say to a guitar player, have you studied classical music?
Right.
You never do that. With certain instruments, you just never do that, right? But with violin, if you don't study, if you're not a classical musician, you're kind of looked down upon. And I'm not. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I play classical music for fun, right? I'm not, like I said, the instrument has always been a vehicle for me. So, it's interesting because growing up in New York, I wanted to play jazz, and I wanted to play jazz on the violin. So, no one ever told me no. People were welcoming, always welcoming. So, yeah, what I say to people that are outside or color outside the box is continue to color outside the box and find your footing.
I got a bunch of questions because I deal with that on a regular basis. Where
Grab that mic. So there's a mic right there. Okay.
oh, where? Oh shoot. Okay. So I deal with a lot of students who are not drawn to the classical music per se, but want to branch outside. Because Doc, he was one of them. His parents reached out to me because he was on the verge of quitting, and his teacher actually was like, "No, you cannot play anything outside of classical." But he's a hip hop. When I tell you hip hop,
I know.
I've
had him for
so a lot of times kids are not encouraged to practice as a result because they are forced to play the things they don't like, as opposed to finding ways to expand their creativity. How do you deal with the parents? Because the parents are the ones paying for
Well,
the
it's
sessions.
what I said. The instrument is a vehicle, right? And technique is important, but the instrument is a vehicle. And the instrument gives you as an individual a voice. And if you're looking to create a unique voice, then you should stay the course, And if people don't understand that, then I guess that's their problem. It shouldn't be yours. And if a student comes to you and they want to learn music outside, they want to learn alternative music, they should never be told, no.
But also if they see more examples, then they'll know that you can do that.
Yeah. Because that's why we're trying to go.
Like if
to
you
the
see
community.
Ken Ford and you see Frank and Nicole and Karen are gonna be here today. Yeah, I mean, so many examples. All the people in this room, you can be an example.
So in terms of the parents, how do you, since they're the ones paying for the lessons, how do you educate them in a way that, because I'm still going through some obstacles where they see the improvisation as a fun thing, but if you want to learn real technique, you have to study Tchaikovsky.
But you know what?
Doesn't
It take technique to play these styles of music? It's a different kind of technique, but it's technique.
Right.
You have to develop your ears. You have to develop technique on the instrument to be able to physically play the instrument. That's insane.
Yeah, I think that there are arguments that can be made in favor of learning non-classical music on the string instruments beyond the very important DEI argument So for example, another one I would say is the SEL, social emotional learning, right? So the idea that when you're developing a more therapeutic experience in your practice, that has value for you socially and emotionally. Also socially, because you can play with other friends. Like the reason I got into this, because I was 15 and none of my friends cared about me, my Paganini, but they played in a rock band. And so I could have friends because I played in a rock band, right? Now there's other reasons, because creativity, people don't just hire on test scores, they hire on problem solving. So if you're creating things on your instrument, then you're developing a kind of intelligence that is around problem solving, not just getting high scores on tests. And so, corporate type parents will understand these arguments. Also, lifelong learning, student directed learning. These are buzzwords that many teachers may have heard before. So if you throw out some of those, then that might help make the argument more clear to them. That's just a thought.
Do you have more questions?
I have a million. I actually a lot of times get called to go to different schools, and the students come up to me, beg me to speak to their parents. But I was teaching at a school in, I'm not gonna say the name, where they brought me on because I basically felt a need, because they had problems recruiting kids for the orchestra. So I was brought on as the fun guy, even though they were learning. They were practicing, they were going home, coming up to me the next day. Look, speaking of Chinese, I had 3 students that loved Asian music, like the traditional stuff, and they couldn't learn it. And I had no idea. So what I told them was just bring me some music or show me some YouTube videos for them to start learning. And the orchestra got back on track. However, when they wanted to do the serious stuff, they ended up hiring somebody else because they didn't see me as somebody who could teach fundamentals.
Can I speak to this though?
Yes,
also?
you can.
So this idea that there's serious learning and non-serious learning, I think is something, the violin, in my humble opinion, the violin is almost has been seen in our larger culture, or at least let's say the white culture, as an archetype. It's a stand-in symbol for reason, for a certain type of intelligence, a certain type of discourse, a certain type of culture. It's an archetype of whiteness, I would even argue, the violin, in our culture in a larger way. And so it's confronting for people to think about playing black music on a violin. It confronts deeper prejudices and ideas that they have. And there's I think maybe 2 large ways that people have tried to work against that. One is Sphinx. The Sphinx organization is active in trying to create representation for black and brown people in classical music, which we can say with a shorthand is like in the white world music, right? What I've been interested in for a long time is trying to bring more respect towards black and brown music for all people, right? And I think the violin it really teaches us so much, because we can see that there's one culture of learning the violin. It's a white musical education culture. It's like a Suzuki studio or an orchestra environment. And so you learn certain things at the expense of other things. You value certain things at the expense of other things. And these are mirrored in how we look at the larger sense of culture. Like in how we put down certain ways of viewing the world and certain ways of being, or certain ways of expressing oneself or thinking or talking as being less serious. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Like black music, brown music is as heavy a music as there is. It's as deep, as complex, as rich a form of music as there is anywhere in the world, and ever has been. And that is a mirror of the fact that the culture similarly is as heavy, as intelligent, as beautiful, as soulful, as important as any other culture. And this is the real disruption when you start talking about people say, well, if they want somebody to be serious, they go somewhere else. Well, they've got it wrong. Because it is serious. I mean, if you want to call it serious, it's also many things. And it's just as much of all those things, if not more. And if you want proof of that, you can ask any person who's tried to play classical music all their life, say, make that feel good, play that groove, like improvise over this beat, like play the blues. Like they can't. Like it will take me a lifetime to do it. And I'll never claim any kind of ownership of it or mastery of it because I respect it. And I think that's what I want to see. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, I love it.
I love it. It's really interesting because, and I'll speak as a brown person, brown music in the world the diaspora has affected music everywhere in the world. Anywhere you go in the world, you go to Brazil, which has the largest African population outside of Africa, the music is heavily influenced. Samba and all the offshoot musics are heavily influenced. I went to Turkey and years ago, picked up a hip hop CD. Brown music has permeated every culture, right? But it's really kind of ironic in that, it's hard to explain this. It takes, for example, I'll use hip hop because that's the ideal. Hip hop was kind of like this thing that those people did for the longest time. And then it was accepted by the larger culture. And it wasn't until the Smithsonian recognized and accepted hip hop, even though every commercial and movie and clothing styles, all of this it became a part of the culture. It wasn't as important and as respected, right? I find it very difficult to, how can I say this I find it very difficult. I think it's very important that people understand the importance of Black music in this culture. And I don't think it gets the respect until it's recognized by the white culture and accepted. Then it becomes important. I don't know if anybody agrees with me or disagrees. If you disagree with me, you can say that too. But it's very, very strange. I teach history, and I teach the evolution of rock and roll. And as a result of teaching that course, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how connected this music is, how rock and roll appears to be, people separate the two music. They say rock and roll is white music and R&B is Black music. No, it's all the same music, and it all came from the same place. And if you don't believe me, take my class. Because I've done a lot of research to find the connection. I'll tell you a funny story which has nothing to do with the violin, but has everything to do with what we're talking about. There's a song called Rock Island Line that was originally done by Leadbelly, right? But a gentleman by the name of Lonnie Donegan in England recorded the song, and it became a major hit, and he was playing guitar. He's the reason Jimmy Page picked up the guitar, Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin. And the Beatles became a skiffle band because of Lonnie Donegan. But Lonnie Donegan's copying Leadbelly. You see how these things are connected? I don't make these things up, right? But people don't know this. So that's why I'm going full circle, coming back to what we were talking about. A matter of Black lives. I'm not trying to indoctrinate anyone. I'm not trying to make anybody black. Very important for you to understand that. I'm just trying to bring things, information that people don't know. They honestly don't know these things. I don't fault you. But if I sit here and lecture to you, you get bored, right? But if I bring it to you through music, you're willing to listen. So that's why these projects are important to me. Yes, ma'am.
Two things. One is, actually when I was in college, we had a course called The Spirituals and the Blues. And we did how from the spirituals down, music diverged into more modern day R&B and country, but they all extend from the same modern day country, gospel, all of that. So it's exactly what you were saying. All music comes from the same place. It's just a matter of who's listening to it, the sound that you hear. The second thing though is, how do you get children who are not exposed to instruments and the differences in music, that exposure when it's not offered at the educational institutions where they currently are, funding, nobody to teach it, what have you? You know, are there programs where we can get college students to come in once a week and maybe have some instruments or something? I mean, we need children exposed to it, because there should be more young people here.
All right, I'll tell you, and then I want Chris to talk. I've had, I run a jam session in Art Serve in Fort Lauderdale. I've run it for 16 years. A lot of the kids came from Dillard. A lot of those kids are doing amazing things. I've run that jam session, and we had a dedicated audience, and we still do. I did the last one is in June, and then we do it June through January. I also curate a concert series called Jazz Encounters at WDNA. I've done that for 15 years. August will be 15 years, the beginning of 15 years. Out of that grew a jam session, and then out of that grew a workshop. And some of the people that are here today are members of the workshop. I charge people $5. I will not charge any more than $5. I bring in people. Noam was my TA at Frost, and Noam's with me virtually every week. And we work on the nuance of music. I don't care. Nico, over there, plays violin. He came to me when he was a lot shorter than I was. But the point is this. It's important to me to spread information about music and give people opportunity at every junction. And I do this workshop, and I do it, and I've done it all these years because it's important to me that young people be exposed to music outside of what they get in a classroom. We don't necessarily work on technique, or we work on making music. We work on the nuance of music. And we work on getting young people to use their brains to be creative. That's what we work on. So yes, I have opportunities. If y'all are interested, you know where I am.
So to answer your question, for the past, I think, 5 years, I've been basically going to different schools to expose, especially people, our people, that there's a whole different world. Because a lot of strengthers don't understand when I tell them I started playing the cello in Haiti, and I did not learn classical music. I started playing gospel and Haitian African music. That's how I started. It was not until I moved to the States when I was 13, 8 years to my playing, that I was exposed to the Bach and the Beethoven and all of that. And when I tell people I still was able to go to school, I still was able to get a scholarship to study, and to let people know that no, the instrument is not made for classical music. The instrument is basically the instrument. So what if I'm born in Turkey? You mean to tell me I have to learn about Mozart? What if I'm born in Haiti? I have to learn about Mozart? What about all the Haitian musicians? that came before me. I could not learn about them. You mean to tell me in order for me to be a great musician, I had to learn about Bach, where I'm from Haiti. African runs in my veins. So why can I learn about my culture? So this is what I try to go to different schools to let them know. What you've been told is not true. The instrument is not made for that. You can learn about it if you like, to basically expand your vocabulary. Like we learn different words, so we can communicate. So if you're a jazz player, you want to learn bluegrass, it makes you a better musician. If you want to learn jazz, all the different genres, that makes you an overall complete musician. But to tell me that classical is the foundation to make you better is false. And I'm very, very passionate about that. I tell people, look, it's not true. So I can talk to you after. So we'll make it work.
Totally not related, but I don't know if you guys know who Bella Fleck is, the banjo player. Okay, Bella Fleck made a movie called Throw It On Your Heart several years ago. And he took the banjo back to Africa, because you know the banjo is an African instrument, right? And the closest I believe is the Ngoni. And he went to several countries and recorded. It was the best thing ever. He went to several countries and recorded with African musicians, vocalists and instrumentalists. And I think he won a Grammy for it. But it was really, I show this in my classes because it's important for people. People don't understand the connection. It's just what you just said. You know, the instrument, in one shape or form, finds its way around the world. You know what I mean? It may look like a violin here, it may look like an ngoni here, it may look like a pipa in China. You know what I'm saying? So stringed instruments find their way around the world. And so that's why I think it's very important that we interpret, learn, and understand different styles of music, because it makes the world smaller. And no one style is better than any other. I agree with you. I'm sorry.
Any comments? Yeah, I made everybody quiet. Oh, there's a hand.
So, I wanted to also show appreciation from a historical context, cultural as well, because I remember my father.
You're very soft back there, and I would love for you to, oh, here comes the mic. Here comes the mic.
So, not to misinterpret the concept of.
But now you need to hold it up so we can hear you.
So,
Oh, it may not be on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, now it is.
thank you. So, not to misinterpret the concept, but I wanted to go back to what you were saying about certain music serving as a foundation. I think sometimes, I think you both can be correct in that sometimes it's not so much that it's the foundation for everything, it may be just what gets you into the door. There's styles of music that were birthed by being introduced to instruments and styles outside of what they're accustomed to. And so it may not technically be the base, but it can also be some form of base in which they're creating a different sound. And the prime example will be the multitude of styles that comes out of Congo. You mentioned the banjo. We have different instruments, particularly in the southern part of Congo, the Katanga region. Instrument that is largest a drum that you play similar to the banjo, but you sit on it.
You showed me that, I just
Yes,
remember.
yeah, remember? Okay. And then also I wanted to reflect on, I remember my father would always used to tell me that he always thought Cuban music was the foundation of some of the styles that we formulated in Congo. Yes and no. We kind of refer to Cuban music as our classical music, more like the Western connection, but it's also borrowing from something that was also influenced by you before it got to you. You know, so a lot of that happens quite a bit. And so that's why I say, yes, it's true, but both can be true in that, as you pointed out, it's a cyclical concept in which we're listening to and adapting so many different forms of styles and sounds. And I just think it's amazing. I may not be well versed with Bach and such styles, but I can appreciate the resonance and the connection to it. And then what I also found myself noticing, I think from the documentary you pointed out, I remember listening to, I can listen to blues from the South and then listen to Malian musicians and change the translation, and it's the same style. It's the exact same style, intensity, tonality, and you're like, oh, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
But there are different parts of the world. But yes, I mean, I thank you all, and we look forward to seeing a lot more of you here, if possible. Matter of fact, I just invite you all, please come back.
I'm begging everybody to come back.
Yeah.
Just on the same note that you said, 2 examples. I have a friend that lives in New Orleans. I mean, not New Orleans, he lives in Lafayette, Louisiana, and he plays Zydeco music.
Yeah.
And he went to Mali and freaked out because the music he was playing, he plays concertina and he plays, his name is Terrence Simeon. Terrence went to Mali and it was mirrored. The stuff he was doing was the same stuff in Mali. Now, not only that, there's a great documentary. I don't speak Spanish, so very well anyway. But there's a great documentary that you can find called They Are We. And a filmmaker went to, I think she went to Cuba first, and she documented these people singing and dancing. And then she went to Africa and showed the people in Africa, the people dancing and singing, and they freaked out. They went, oh my God, that's the same thing we do. That's what my grandmother, and the beauty of this film is they got to meet. So you start to see, I don't make these things up, guys. I just, it's in my head because I've been teaching history so long and researching stuff, and I start to see these connections. And I want to share this with everybody. Because when you start to see these connections, you hopefully get excited about other styles of music and starting to do your own detective work. And starting to see, wow, I didn't realize that came from that. I didn't realize this. So, I don't know. Anybody else? Oh, there's a hand. I'm gonna give you this mic. I talk too much.
Hi. So first of all, thank you. I'm really glad that I could be here and learn a lot about the styles and the improvisation that I wasn't exposed to. And I would like to ask you, so I guess you have a class and you teach those stuff. I understand it's not in some kind of school program, it's outside of it. And I was wondering if you think that it should be a school program. And if so, how would you see that being integrated?
Well, you got it.
Yeah, you can change the music curriculum in orchestra programs or in band programs. There's percussion ensembles, and the teachers need to be trained in all these things. You know, they need to be trained not only. I don't know, this might feel controversial to some people, but I think there's been a lot of attention, at least by some people, placed on the importance of talking about culture and history. And so I think probably everybody here would agree that's a good thing. And I also think that there needs to be now attention put, especially for the bow string community, on universal fundamentals. Some of the things that I tried to talk about today, for example, is like, how do you deal with harmony? Harmony exists in like almost every music. And so does rhythm, and how do you apply those things to like a violin or whatever? Some of those things I think we can train the teachers in schools with that method. And then it can be integrated however they want to integrate it. It can be completely integrated.
Thank you. I kind of see it as maybe the classical music, the exercises are kind of the base to like create this form, the structure, And the music that we talked about today is kind of the next layer of, all right, we got this structure, now let's play with it.
I don't see it that way.
So,
I just think that's the way it's been done. And a lot of people have said, that's kind of like the argument that people have said, like, well, first you need to learn technique, and the only way to learn technique is through these classical pieces. I just disagree with that. It's just an assumption. Nobody's ever proved that to me. And so you can learn how to use the right arm, you can learn how to use the left arm in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be on Bach. It just so happens that the resources that are most commonly promoted have done it that way.
Yeah.
Also, kids don't need to learn a lot of technique before they learn improvisation or harmony. So, yeah, I strongly disagree with that, because I think it's a slippery slope. But that's the argument people have made. They said, well, we've got to learn technique, we've got to learn classical music, or you're not going to be able to do any of this other stuff, and it's relegating all these other things. I just don't see it that way. I think it's like everything should be integrated. I don't.
I agree with Chris in that
Years ago, I figured something out. I call it the mechanics of music. Whatever style of music you want to learn, you have to figure out what makes that music sound the way it does, right? So you take it apart and you go, okay, so they kind of play legato here, they play staccato here, this is short, this is how they approach the notes, this is where the notes start and end. That's the same in any style of music, jazz, classical, whatever, right? Then you learn, you say, this is your voice. This is what you sing with, right? So you need to figure out how to manipulate it to get that sound. Am I correct in saying this, Mr. Howard?
I agree with that.
I think that that's more important than necessarily, there's a certain technique to playing Bach. So you need to go back and mechanically figure out how to approach playing Bach. There's a certain technique to playing Brahms. You need to go back. You see what I'm saying? I don't care what style of music it is. Bluegrass feels a certain way. And I can get up and play the notes, but it may not sound like a bluegrass player. We worked with someone, she graduated since, but she grew up. She'd been playing bluegrass since she was 3. So she understood how to play the music, and it sounded right when she played it. So the point is, it's the mechanics of the music that, to me, determines the technique necessary to play whatever style it is.
I'm going to answer the question, and also I got this idea from Victor Wooten. Amazing, look him up. He always talk about babies learn to just mumble. They don't learn at 3 months to spell words. They listen and they mimic. And we as professional talkers, when a baby is talking to us, we don't tell them, be quiet. Adults are talking. Until you're able to formulate words, don't talk to me. We still engage with them. So in the music world, it's taught backwards. We're teaching technique before we teach music. We have to teach people to feel the music, to understand, to hear the notes, to be able to translate that on their instruments. And then over time, when they learn a lot of words, then we can tell them how to put it together. Babies, they say a lot of words, da da mama, all these words. It's not until they go to school, okay, mama is M-A-M-A. So we do it opposite. We, from the day one, this is G major. But do I know what G sounds like? Do you know, have you paid attention? Have you felt the music? Do you understand the rhythm? It's not just rhythm, a quarter note. On the paper, can you feel it? Can you feel the beat? So it's the reverse. We gotta go back to what feels natural instead of trying to force technique before musicality. So that's all.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so about to sit down next to me is this wonderful violinist. this wonderful musician who I actually known for years. I've known of her, and I've heard her on recordings, and had the opportunity to play with her in Atlanta. And she drove down from Charlotte to be with us, and it was just the coolest thing ever. So you're going to hear her later on in a little bit, but this is Miss Karen Briggs. Please give it up for her. So Karen, we're just talking about, and you and I kind of had this conversation the other day.
Yes.
We were talking about approach to music and the importance of, I have to say, the African-American contribution to the music. And I wish you would, first of all, tell people a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. Is this on? Yes. Hi, everybody. Sorry I got here so late. The flight from Charlotte. Anyway, so I'm here now, and let's see. I've been playing in September. It'll be 50 years. I've been to 50 countries. My career blew up when I was playing with Yanni, live at the Acropolis. And from there, one thing followed after another. Diana Ross, I've recorded with Wu-Tang Clan, I've done hip hop, I've done charanga, I've done jazz, a lot of R&B, a lot of pop. I've played in Tunisia, I played in Baghdad, Iraq, and a lot of different styles and genres of music. I played in the Virginia Symphony before I moved to Los Angeles, where I lived for nearly 40 years. And interesting environment there, a lot of very high-end musicianship there. And then in 2020, I moved to Charlotte. I have 2 daughters. I raised both of them by myself, so that's doable. And one just got her master's degree, the other one's in high school, freshman. And it's been an interesting life, a little off the beaten path for most women, but it's doable. I just need to say that, just in case you wondered. And let's see, what else can I say? I don't know. I could say a lot of things, but that would take hours. You just have to wait for the book. In the meantime, if you have any questions. Yeah. Oh, my first major tour, the group called Soul to Soul. You remember that group? Y'all remember that group? That's the one. Yeah. That was my first major tour. And Yanni came the following year after that. Some very interesting energy that took place that made those things happen when they did. I did not set out to be a musician. I set out to be someone's wife. That's why I moved to California. And when that didn't work out, and my mother at the time was terminally ill, I made a decision that I was going to go and sit in with whoever would allow me to do that while I was in LA. And it was all, I'd go up to a reggae band and, can I sit in with y'all? And they're like, yeah, sure, what do you do? You sing? I said, no, I play violin. And that was a very foreign kind of concept at that time. Violin, but I'd always do it, and because I always knew that I could find a role in that music. So I found my role in a lot of music in ways that were not defined in many cases. And they like the sound of it, and I caught on there's a little buzz in Los Angeles about it, which is a big market to have a buzz in. I also know how to read. I've done lots of recording sessions for television shows. I'm in one movie called Music of the Heart. It's a great movie, kids can watch it, and I'd watch it even if I wasn't in it. But that was based on a true story because they had a really incredible string program in New York, which is where I was born. And a lady named Roberta Tavares was a teacher there, and these kids could really, really play. But they were losing their funding, and the school was about to shut down. And so they had a fundraising concert at Carnegie Hall. This was in 1999, I believe it was. And Itzhak Perlman was there, Isaac Stern, bless his soul, he was there. Ida Kafavian, they had Mark, what's the country violinist?
O'Connor.
Mark O'Connor was there, and I was invited to do it. I played with Dave Grusin, accompanied me for that. Twinkling of an Eye.
Oh,
John
Blake.
Blake. That's when I met John Blake. Yes.
I knew exactly.
I knew it. So, I've had a very interesting life. It's not for everybody. I will say that. It's not for everybody, but a lot of people feel that they want to do this. So I guess I'm just here to answer whatever questions you may have. And I just came back from...
answer those questions.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I just came back from... where did I go? St. Lucia, like to do a jazz festival there like 2 days ago. So I'm a little out of it, but
But you're saying exactly what we were talking about before you came here.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? See, there is, and the point was, we were talking about, well, Chris made the point that you don't necessarily, and we talked about this a little bit.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to be a classical musician
No.
to play in a variety of styles. Because,
No.
I mean, I've been an alternative string boy all my life.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but you made a way, and you created a niche for yourself
Yes, I did.
because of your wonderful ability.
Yes,
So-
yes. At least that's what, I didn't know I was gonna do that, but that's what ended up happening, just a happenstance. The other thing I should say that was overlooked when I started playing, which was in like 1970, I think it was. No, 76. And I always had perfect pitch. I didn't know that then, but so violin was, the only reason I took violin is because my mother said I couldn't take home economics. That's what I shot for when you could choose classes in junior high. And I told her, she said, what did you choose? And I said, home ec, and she said, choose something else. So the orchestra had come to school. My teacher was an African-American woman who played saxophone, but she knew how to teach strings. And she brought a rhythm section, she brought a string section, and she brought this light-skinned dude with a big afro. And they played a Mozart piece, a Beethoven piece, and then they played a Barry White piece. And then dude got up with the afro and he sang, "It takes a fool to learn that love don't love nobody." And all the girls behind me, they just screaming like it was Michael Jackson. I thought that's so cute. But I didn't think I didn't have an interest in joining the orchestra until she announced that if I took it in summer school, when the regular semester started, you would be in the advanced class, and they were going to New York. And as I said, I was born there. I still had an elder sister who was still there. And I thought maybe I could play good enough to make the trip. That's why I took violin. I had no idea I'd be playing this long. And I had a lot of people around me who told me I could not make a living being a musician when they saw that I liked it. I had a lot, because where I grew up was Portsmouth, Virginia. That's where, when we left New York, that's where we went, Tidewater. And, people there either joined the military, they worked in the naval shipyard, or they got married, or they went to college. That was kind of the choices. And nobody was majoring in music. So, thank you. If I can't eat that in front of everybody, you know that. Oh, that's somebody don't even know.
I cut it up for you. So
Thank you. I appreciate you.
This is family, so
Okay, all right. Anyhow, so we played for chairs, and I got first chair. We played a tune called Festival March. I still remember it to this day, and everybody wanted to beat me up when I got first chair. When I took the chair from the other girl, a bunch of girls wanted to beat me up, and the kind of teacher I had, she would see me walking to school. It's about a 2-mile walk. Because, if it's just one-on-one, that's one thing. You got 5 girls just gonna jump on you at once. It's like, I'm not gonna make myself available for that. So I started walking to school. My teacher would see me as she was driving to school, and she'd stop. "Why are you walking to school?" And I said, "I'm just doing it for the exercise." And she said, "Okay." She said, "Get in the car." And she'd take me to school. Then she saw me another day and another day and another day.
Wow.
And then she started to get suspicious, because she understood the vibration of the neighborhood we were in. And she said, "Somebody tried to beat you or something for getting first chair." And I just looked down, and she came in front of the whole orchestra that day and just told the whole class off. The way she talked at the time. She's a very classy woman. I wish I could show you a picture of her. Maybe when we talk individually, I can show you a picture. She's very classy, kind of from that Dorothy Dandridge era with the pencil skirts and the pumps, and she had this way of tipping when she walked, and you could hear her coming a mile away because of the click-clack of the heels. And she taught us etiquette. She taught us who invented the traffic light, because I never knew that. She taught us etiquette like at banquets and things like that. She taught us more than just music. But the first time she heard me play something outside of traditional classical, she almost shut me down. She heard me play Amazing Grace. You know how Amazing Grace sounds when it has no melisma. It's pretty straightforward. And I heard it like that, but what I really heard was Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin's version of it. So that was my approach. And I say that to say that in my personal opinion, I think in its best authenticity, music is really a cultural expression, is what it is. And that's the issue that I kind of grew up with the violin, because then I go to this Virginia Symphony, hey, look, I just got a new electric violin and it's white, and I'm so happy. And they look at me and snicker and laugh like it meant something bad. So that was kind of an uphill climb. There were a couple of violinists out at the time. Noel Pointer was out, Jean-Luc Ponty was out. We knew about Stefan Grappelli. Some of us knew about Ray Nance and, you know, some of the other. Joe Venuti. We were hearing them, but like Jean-Luc and Noel Pointer were getting most of the airplay at the time on the radio when they did play stuff like that on the radio. And eventually I met him. I did not meet Jean-Luc, but we are aware of each other. And they were both very validating for me, because there weren't a lot of people around me just playing music like that on violin.
Wow.
So that was very validating.
Yeah, that's somebody I wish I had met.
Who's that?
Noel Pointer.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
But do you remember String Reunion?
Mm-mm. No, where
There
was
was a
that?
group of African American string players that in New York, I want to say the Southern,
Yeah,
it was a long time ago. All of the African American string players were. I even have a recording somewhere of this. And Noel Pointer was in that group.
Akua Dixon.
And her sister was in that group. A bunch of George. Do you remember George? Oh God. Anyway, there were. But it was. He was a part of that. But I never got a chance to meet him.
He's a fabulous personality, very nice. He came to Norfolk one time, did a concert, and Roy Ayers and some other musicians were on that show, and he popped a string and didn't have a spare. And that's how I met him. Because I ran all the way back home, brought my violin, all my spare strings, and he took them all. His manager took them all, and then he came to an after party of which I was invited to. And see, I was in college at the time. And $20 was like $100 back then. That's what the strings cost. And I had to hit him up at the party too. Like, I'm still in college, and I really couldn't afford to give you all my strings like that. So he's like, he reached in his wallet and he handed me $20. So he was good.
Anybody have any questions for Karen?
I told him almost everything.
No. Well, maybe we should let you eat something, and then maybe you'll do a little play something for us, and then the rhythm section will get here and we'll do the bigger thing. But if you feel like playing a little bit something.
Yeah, I don't mind playing ever.
Okay. So, well,
Does being a violinist make you rich?
Hell no. It's possible, because I've had times like, when Yanni's video took out, that broke records. That was, at that time, the highest selling fundraiser for PBS in its history.
Stringed artist, rather, not just the violinist, but just being.
Oh no, it's certainly possible. I've had my ups and downs. That's what they always say about the music industry, and that is a reality. However, I work very hard on my faith and my vibrations to keep it as high as possible, and I've always been okay. I've always kept my faith in place, and it's very important. I don't care what you do, you got to do that. And I've played Taj Mahal, Carnegie Hall. I've played the Acropolis. I won the Apollo. I've been a lot of places. The Forbidden City. I just recently did something in Bulgaria last summer. Some 2,000-year-old castle.
So you're able to live comfortably, but
I feel comfortable with it, because that's that's up to each individual what they think comfortable. Some people think that's a 13-room mansion. To me, that's a lot of square footage to keep clean. So I'm cool with 1,200. Yeah, and I had a bigger house before in California, in Encino. And my whole family thought I was rich because they knew the Jacksons lived there. And they'd be calling me up, trying to hit me up. You don't want that problem. You don't want that problem. But it's certainly doable. I wish I was able to maintain with a partner to deal with the dips, but I don't know, I've always been okay. Now I'm just at a stage where I'm 61, I'll be 62 in August. I'm done. So I'm done. I'm cool. I'm good. My girls are good, and I'm good. Yeah.
This young lady has a question.
Yes, hi, beautiful.
Yeah, you mentioned like that you were playing with Yanni. Like were you in the video with the attraction? Because my mom really.
That
liked
was
it.
me.
Wait, you were the one playing?
The red dress, right?
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. Now the Wu-Tang tune, for those of you who are hip hop, that was the record called Reunited. They gave my credit to someone else, but she did not record that.
Wow.
Now I recorded that.
So wait, now I have to ask you because I didn't think about that.
Mm.
Not Wu-Tang. I'm thinking of Soul to Soul.
Yes.
Were you in the Back to Life video?
I was not in the best. People think I was, but I always tell them the truth. I toured with them. It's why, because when they blew up in this country, they came here and then they started getting invites to do like Soul Train, and they did the Image Awards, and that was leading up to the tour that the world tour that they did. So I did those shows. I was on Soul Train. That was
Because I'm just saying
monumental.
the way you're dressed and the way I'm just thinking of the video and the lead singer.
Yeah, well, you know, we had similar energy, and when I first saw them, I thought that should be my gig. I really did say that to myself as soon as I saw them, because by this time, you know, I had played a lot of salsa, so I could dance and play at the same time, and they were dancing, and I had never seen that before, and I said, oh, I should be in that gig. And Patrice Rushen is the one who helped me get that gig, because she was the music director when they came to do those shows. They did not bring the full band, so they had to get musicians from here. And I think Soul Train, I think we just faked playing for Soul Train. They just used a track, and we just had to look like we were playing along. But the other gig, the Image Awards, that one was cool. And I saw the people that I saw at that show. I have a whole list of all the celebs I've met. Sammy Davis Jr. was there with Sidney Poitier, and Mike Tyson was there. It was amazing, you know, just to be in that environment. Barry White was there. Tina Marie was there. It was just a lot of well-known people at these events. Yes. And you got to talk to them. And some of them were very intimidating to me. I mean, when I saw like Smokey Robinson and the Sidney Poitier, Sammy Davis Jr., that was just a couple of years before he passed. And he looked sick then, too. I remember thinking that when I saw him. But they had a big entourage around him, coming down the hall, and everything was flashing, pop camera. And, you know, I'll never forget that. That was... there have been a lot of great experiences and sightings, celebrity sightings along all these years I've been playing. It's been wonderful. And some of them, they've come and knocked on my dressing room door, mainly for the Acropolis video, like Jackie Jackson from the Jackson 5. He knocked on my dressing room door. Smokey Robinson, Halle Berry. Smokey Robinson came with Leon Kennedy. And he just knocked on, hi, my name is, I'm like, I know who you are. It's like, you know, but those have been amazing experiences, very validating to know that people in the world liked my playing after the uphill climb of feeling rejected because I didn't want to focus all my energy on one style of music. And then the other part of that is I did an international string quartet competition. I have to tell you about that because I told her that story the other day. We worked on this music by Bartok for months, weeks, months. You know, I was coming back and forth from New York to Virginia to work with these other guys that were older than I. But we were all in this string quartet competition, which took place in Portsmouth, England. I grew up in Portsmouth, Virginia, which is the sister city to Portsmouth, England. And so we got a lot of attention just with the local press and all that, the news and all that, about the fact that we were going. And it was an all-expense paid trip. Yehudi Menuhin was the consulting judge. And we worked on that music so hard for hours, weeks, days, months, you know, probably for about 6 months. I remember us working on this music, and we could not get past the 4th page together. We just couldn't. It was really difficult. We didn't understand the music. We didn't feel it anywhere. At least that's how I felt. And it was just like me and these 3 guys. And we didn't want to go. We told my teacher, same teacher, that we did not feel like we should go. And she's like, oh no, you're going to go because this is paid for. You've had all this press. They're looking forward to you coming. You're having dinner at the Lord Governor's house and you're going. And we just kind of got quiet and we spoke amongst ourselves and we said, we'll keep working on it. We never got past the 4th page of that song cleanly. So we flew over there. We had the dinner at the Lord Governor's house. That was amazing. And I mean, this was not a house, this was an estate. And, they put us in these dormitories, and we were really stressed out. And finally, we had to pick straws to determine which group went first. These groups were coming from China, Japan, they were coming from Italy, they were coming from internationally, from all over the world, Germany. And so, we were, I think we were fifth. The straw that we picked, the length of it made us fifth. And finally, we got so scared because it was the day before, maybe 2 days before, and we had a meeting with Mr. Menuhin, and we told him we don't think we have no real understanding of this music. We've been working on it. We don't think we should do it. And he made us do it anyway. So we went on stage, and the way this contest was set up, they had built this thing. There's like this big shell that was behind us. You could hear everything, anything. You could just hear it just bounce right off out into the audience. And all the other players and groups were in the audience along with some extra people just locally there. And we were really nervous. We went up there and we played the song, and we got up to the fourth page, and we fell apart. We fell apart in front of everyone. And it didn't help that when we walked up there, all the Germans started laughing at us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like not the kind of etiquette you usually see in environments like that. And that didn't feel better, And people were against them for doing that later. I realized, they kind of sided with us. And they seemed to have an understanding that we didn't have access to the same resources and things like that. Those who befriended us after this. But we stood up, we took our bow, Germans laughed again, other people were just applauding, and then we left. And we sat very quietly over dinner, and we didn't say anything to each other really, we just ate. And in my mind at that time, I made a decision. Now, who won it was these four brothers. They were brothers from Italy. They had on perfectly tailored Armani suits, came up there and played through that piece like I would play through Gangsta's Paradise or something. They just played through them, no problem. It was, very easy for them. And I was like, why am I beating myself up to try to master another culture's music when none of these people here could do anything like I could do? None of them could play Amazing Grace like me. Nobody could, because that was culturally my expression. And I made a decision that I was going to pursue that direction on violin, at least for as long as I did until I had to make a living doing it, because I didn't plan on that, as I told you. But, it turned out that a lot of people liked it, and I nearly paid my way through college, the expenses at least, just playing Amazing Grace. I was invited everywhere to play that. And that's the song I played to win at the Apollo as well. And of course, I've added a lot more songs to my repertoire since then. But it's been an interesting ride, and I think I'm grateful for this because we get a chance to legitimize the idea that violin does not have to be stuck in this box. And I'm glad to see that other people are coming out of the expected box of country and classical music. Still a lot of people are unaware, but I'm really grateful that people are opening up about that. And just making themselves just see another way. There's nothing wrong with being outside of the box, or in, really, I should say. But I think the vocabulary that I've developed came from a lot of different genres, and that's my own signature style. And you can't ask for nothing more better than that. That's a lot of freedom, and I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you. I'll let you be. I'm gonna let you be. What
I
time
know
is
you
it?
have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He actually had a question.
Oh.
Oh, so, all right.
Hey.
No, this is a while back. I was just wondering what happened with the Wu-Tang reunion. That sounds crazy that you played on that.
Yeah.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. Well, I could tell you, I don't know if I want to get that deep off into RZA. I don't know, he was in a kind of a space at that time, is what I hear. And I've spoken to the producer, True Master, since then. I'm getting ready to do a project with him, in fact. But, he gave me some insight as to what was going on with RZA at the time, so I got no credit for it. And I was still with Yanni at the time, and you got a record that's going Wu-Tang MF and I mean, it was a time like 8 to 10 years in my life. I really couldn't walk down the street like regular people. I got recognized everywhere I was in the world. I certainly didn't see that coming, but because of the Acropolis being shown so much on PBS, everybody knew my face for a while. I'd go to the grocery store at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd see Shaka Khan in there too, and I realized why they did that. You know, just to avoid being mobbed by people. I couldn't believe the impression that video. And to this day, on social media, people are still talking about that. It was like 30 years ago or something like that now. And people are still talking about it. But so that was one image, because we're talking New Age versus Wu-Tang. So I was trying to get them to use a different name for me, like my email address is sisterfiddler@gmail.com if you want to write. And so I was trying to get them to use that instead, and they just decided to do nothing at all. So a lot of people felt that, what's her name? Marie Ben Ari, they felt that she did it. That's what a lot of people kind of defaulted to.
Yeah, I do know her.
I'm like, but she from Israel. How you gonna? You know, I've been there too. But yeah, that's kind of what happened. So we're actually in the process of trying to get that straightened out now. Yeah, all these years later. Yeah. Anybody else? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I have a question. I don't know if it's like a little too personal or anything. You don't have to come up, but like when you at least had like your first like kid, were you still able to like tour around or like go all over the place or like?
You know, what I did going to my faith is I asked for balance between being a parent and being a musician. That's what I did. And it seems that's what I got. She just got her master's degree. She didn't even major in music. They know music, but they never played an instrument, never wanted to. And she got a bachelor's degree in kinesiology, which is like sports therapy. And then she just got her master's in strength and conditioning. The youngest child is a total jazz fusion head. That's what she's on to like. Alan Holdsworth is like her favorite guitar. She's into Return to Forever, Stanley Clarke, Jean Legrand, you know. That's all she listens to. She knows about hip hop and other genres, but that is her thing. She has LPs, and she just got one from Chieli Minucci and Special Effects came into me. He sent that to her actually. And she loves going to my shows and concerts. She's very brilliant, very intelligent, learns all the facts about all the musicians. And she belongs to a group of musicians who talk about these kind of artists all the time. So I think that, you know, what my experience did for them was give them more of a world view. I mean, they could use chopsticks by the time they were 4. You know, they both knew how to use, because I was always eating with them. Because, you know, I've been all these places. And if I liked something when I was in China, like Chinese noodle soup, I'd learn how to make it, and I'd introduce it to my kids, and I'd tell them where it came from. And so I think it was a unique experience for them. I mean, they're both bright kids. They do well in just regular school, regular life. And I did have a nice balance. So one time I left my eldest child for 6 months. I flew a family member in who had suddenly become unemployed and paid them rather than someone outside the family to keep her, and I trusted her with her. And I had to take that gig because that gig paid way too much money. Way too much money. So, but what I was able to do with it, I put my daughter in a Korean private school. I'm telling you, she's brilliant today because of the things she learned in that school. I paid for it as long as I could. It was very expensive, but you know, that's what, you know, money's just energy, and I just wanted to expose her to some things, and she came out of that very well. You know, she's had wonderful events in her life that I was able to pull off, you know, but that was probably the longest time I left. Now I'm getting ready to leave my youngest one for a month next month to tour with Diana Ross. But I got to do that. I got to do that. You know, it's like, I just have to do it. But the people that will be keeping her, I have to take her to Atlanta in order for her to have childcare that I feel good about. And her father is there, so, you know, she'll be okay. And she'll just keep listening to jazz fusion. That's all what she'll do, and play her video games or whatever. And she'll have activities. She'll be around other kids her own age, so she'll be okay. But I don't do that too often. This is the longest I've ever left this one. Yeah.
Takes a village.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. The people who really want to see you do it, or they see what you're doing, they will support you. You know, you don't need a big, huge gang of people. You just
Right.
need a few
Right.
people. I always needed good childcare, so I was blessed with that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna let you eat.
Oh, no, I'm
You
on
got
the
it. All right,
roll.
another question.
I'm on the roll now.
There's a saying that minorities have to work twice as hard to earn half as the recognition and respect as people who are not minorities. As a black woman in the music field, do you think that is true? Like, in your
Oh
experience?
gosh, I can tell you from this point of view, there have been several times prior to that video blowing up where I've had to go set my femininity over there and like, I've had a couple of fights with dudes, physical fights. I'm not even kidding. These not dudes that I was dating or married to. Just, you know, I had a dude just come up to me and tell me he wasn't gonna pay me after I played the show. Yeah, I'm sorry. The city I grew up in, what they said about that city was for a city of its size, it had the highest crime rate in the country. I thought I was middle class, but you know, I didn't feel it like that. You know, I got along with everybody there, whatever. You know, that's where I grew up. But you know, I realized I left there with a kind of edge that I didn't even realize I had until I got to LA. And yeah, there were times when, you know, somebody would just do something really disrespectful. It's disrespect is disrespect. And sometimes you got to do stuff to get your respect. And after a while, they're like, no, don't mess with Karen. Karen will kick your beep, you know. Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't the point. It was just, you know, I just couldn't allow that. So that was part of it, but I don't know. It was just part of the fight. That's all. Anything is worth fighting for, you're gonna fight. That's what I think. And I wanted this. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. It can be very sexist. It can be, but so am I. I am too.
No,
when
but
I was
it's-
pregnant with the first child, oh, Yanni and the guys in the band, you know, I came waddling in there with that. They had a jealousy issue about that. That I could make a baby. Well, I'm like, I didn't do it by myself, you know. But they admitted it. They admitted it because I've been on the road with them on tour buses and stuff. A lot of times I'm the only girl in the band. I toured with Stanley Clarke. It was supposed to be me, Patrice Rushen, Alan Holdsworth, Lenny White, and Stanley Clarke. Patrice left the band for some reason. I mean, there was some dispute, and she left. So he replaced her with a lady named Rachel Z. And then Alan Holdsworth was in the middle of recording an album. And so he didn't want to interrupt that to do this project. He wanted to finish his album. And so they got this guy. He was from that glam rock period, you know, when Prince came about and all that, when guys was wearing eyeliner and stuff, but they weren't gay, you know. They're just part of their thing. And they got this guy named Richie Kotzen from the band Poison. Richie was a rock star. He didn't know a shred of information about jazz. He didn't know anything about it. But the band was killing. They were called Vertu. We had a record deal with Sony 550 label. And we did one record, and that was in 1999. It was my year. That was my year, because that happened then too. And we went on the road, lots of drama, but the music was killing. And I wanted this gig because it took me out of that whole new age corny thing, you know, and gave me another genre. I could like practice my rock chops in here, you know. So it was a fun gig, and it was rock with chops, you know. It wasn't just like straight rock. Well, rock always has chops, but these chords were more complicated than what you would hear in most rock scenarios.
Stanley Clarke.
Yeah, and it was fun. I enjoyed it outside of the drama, and I enjoyed it a lot. But it's like, at some point when Patrice left, I remember Stanley Clarke and Lenny called me into a little meeting, like a big room like this where we were rehearsing. It was just me and them. They're like, Karen, Patrice Rushen left the band, and we were just wondering how you felt about being the only girl in the band. And I thought they're gonna look out for me. What am I worried about? I'm always the only girl in the band. That's kind of how I looked at it. But once we got on the road, I learned a few things, and it wasn't really true. So here we are again. You know, I gotta set my femininity aside in order. I've had times when some of these guys' wives and girlfriends, they see me in the band, and I don't know, they would target me like I was with their guys and stuff, and I was strictly there for the music. But I don't know, there was some jealousy issues that would come up then and put you in a place, a mental space where it's like, okay, how do you deal with this? They accuse you of things that were not true, that they just thought for some reason, just because you were in the band. Or sometimes their guys might hear me play and go back home and talk about, oh, this violinist we got in our band, man, Karen is killing, blah, blah, blah. There are some women that can't handle that, especially if they're not musicians. So I dealt with that maybe a few times, but most of the time the way I avoided that, I didn't dress like this, I'll tell you that. I dressed like assalamu alaikum. You know, I was baggy, nothing sexy. I didn't show anything, and I just showed up because I wanted them to see a musician and not a chick. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I look in jazz and certain styles of music. It's mostly men. So you're always going to run up against. I remember years ago people saying, "Yeah, you play good for a girl. You should wear a dress." And the silliness, you know. But the point is this, and this is what I tell singers, and I tell especially female musicians: be the best musician you can be, so that you can stand toe to toe with other musicians. Forget sex. Right? Just be the best musician and be confident and comfortable in yourself so that that's not an issue. I mean, people will do it and they'll do it for skin color, they'll do it for sex, they'll do it whatever. But if you're comfortable in your own skin, that's all that matters. And that's the thing to keep in the forefront of your brain. Yeah. So.
Cricket.
Okay, eat your food.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I sound like your mom now.
Yeah, you ain't got to tell me twice.
So,
excuse me.
Shortly, the rhythm section will get here and we'll kind of group. And if you guys want to get up and stretch your legs, you want to play, you want to do whatever, feel free. You can go to the bathroom too.
someone actually asked me if they could go to the bathroom. I'm like, no. So we'll just, I gotta see if I can find Ken. I have no idea where Ken is.
Yeah, check the phone.
My phone is over here. No, he should, his flight got in, and I suggested.
Oh, he already landed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to give everybody a chance to kind of stretch. Let me see if he.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back later to stream the concert tonight.
I don't want no loss.
Okay.